Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Hi, Foffit. You've reached Mel from Bella, the podcast that feels like a voice note from your best friend. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Bella, and if you're a new listener, welcome to the Inner Group Chat. Not many people know about us apart from me and you, and I'm so excited that you're here. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. We have so much to catch up on. The topic of this week's podcast episode is going to be why your self-talk is so incredibly important, why the way you talk about yourself, think about yourself, act around yourself really matters, and how it impacts every single thing about the person you are and the person you're growing into. Because we know we all have big goals for this year, and I have big goals for this year too, but a key goal that I have is I want to feel more confident in myself. I want to think that I'm actually doing well. I want to be able to scroll on social media and not think of it as a comparison trap. I want to stop comparing myself to every single person around me, and I think it will make me happier. Well, I know it will make me happier because I had a personal coaching session just now with Maria. I'm going to link her below. She's been amazing. She gifted me 3 sessions, and honestly, I've learned so much already. But one of the big things was about, I was asking, how do you actually manifest? Because I think I know how to manifest, but I'm not going to lie, it doesn't happen that quick. And sometimes I write a gratitude list and it feels like a shopping list. And that feels like not something we should say out loud, but it's the truth. It does feel like a shopping list. And so I know that there's some changes that need to happen because that's not the way it should feel. And how we feel and act towards ourselves, that's kind of like the final barrier into achieving what you want to achieve, into things coming easily for yourself, into believing in yourself. It's all connected. And because my negative self-talk is so well trained, is because it's such an active muscle that I always go to, it really makes me question, how am I limiting myself because of this? Because if I don't believe myself, if I don't think I'm doing a good job, if I don't think there are things to be proud of in my life, I'm always going to be working harder and harder and harder and achieving things, but it's never going to be good enough. I'm never going to reach this final goal and feel happy and feel successful if I don't already start celebrating myself at this point. And I know this and I realize this. And so I'm trying to call myself out on it. I'm trying to be proactive with it because I don't want it to be something that dominates all my life. And I feel like last year, I was really, we know this, getting through and got myself to a good point, and I'm happy, and I learned how to be happy, but I want this year to be the exciting year. I want great things to happen this year, and part of that is, looking at myself and reflecting and thinking, you know what, I'm actually not that nice to myself. I'm actually a bit savage, and I don't want that. I don't want to bring that energy into 2026, but not wanting it isn't enough to get rid of it. And so this is the podcast episode where I kind of open up a little bit about why I'm changing my negative self-talk, the way I do talk to myself that is negative, so that you can notice the patterns in yourselves and the things that I'm doing to kind of stop it, to make sure that I can make this year something that is really exciting, and make sure that no matter what I do, I think I'm enough. Because as much as I'm saying I don't find value, it's I don't seek value from these things that I do anymore, which was a big thing, but I'm almost feeling like nothing is good enough, and I don't want that value in myself anymore. I want to think and be proud of myself no matter where I'm at, and think what I'm doing is enough, but I don't celebrate any of my achievements, and it kind of feels cringe to say out loud, doesn't it? I don't celebrate myself enough, but it's a really big blocker in being happy with where you're at. And I think it's probably the blocker in why I'm not happy with where I'm at. And so we're going to open up, we're going to talk about it, and hopefully it'll help you too. But before we do, we're going to have a quick life update because this week we went back to work, guys. And I think that's also, I have been properly homesick this week. Going to be honest, I've been properly homesick. I felt just a bit flat about everything. I felt a bit unsure, a bit uncertain about what I'm doing really. I've just felt a bit like that. And I'm grateful that today, I feel like it's when you've had the first week in your new routine, then things start to feel like they're falling in together, and the nights are getting shorter, there's more sunlight, it's all coming good. But I have just felt really homesick, and I've been really thinking a lot about whether I should just be at home, but I think it's because that's comfortable. I think I've been a bit worried about pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and coming back to Manchester has I've re-left my comfort zone. My comfort zone was home, and now I'm back, and it's a bit oh, okay, we're going to have to face the music now, because I think over Christmas I had all these big ideas about where I wanted to go in my life and what I want to do, and now it's at the action point where I actually have to do all those things, and that is exciting, but it's also a bit daunting. And it's daunting because I'm scared I'm going to fail, but this is all coming into why we need to talk about the self-talk that we have for when about ourselves, because that's all linked. Why am I scared about fate? Like, why is they all together? And so this week I have felt a bit flat. I'm not gonna lie. I have just felt a little bit just not 10/10. I feel like I've been irritable. I've been just not my best self, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We all have weeks like this, but I want to be honest about it, because sometimes I never want to give the illusion that like everything is brilliant. It's not that everything is bad, it's just that this week's been one of those weeks, and that's fine. We all have those weeks. What's important is recognizing it and thinking, how can we make this week not go the same next week? How can we make this week different? And so this is what I'm really thinking about going into this podcast episode, this year, even this next week, of how can I change those thought processes so that they don't plague me anymore, because I don't want to feel the way I've been feeling. I don't want to be constantly filled with comparison and doubt. And so let's get on to the content part of this week's podcast episode, because the comparison and doubt is something that really links to where this all began. Because when I think about how I always speak to myself, I don't think I'm that nice to myself. And it's not in a way of I don't really attack how I look, and I don't attack me as a person, but I really attack how well I'm doing, or my ability to succeed at things. I'll see things online, and I think this is where social media has made things a bit tricky, because you have access to so many things that I have been seeing other people's videos or other accounts. They've got they'll have done more views or more likes or more comments or more. And I've just been thinking okay, well, I'm not doing good enough, and I'm not going to make it because they are doing better than me, and none of this is going to work out. And I know all of those thoughts are a bit ridiculous, because I really believe that this is going to work out, and I really love what I'm doing. I'm proud of what I'm doing, but I want to be honest and share those moments of self-doubt with you, because I've kind of been self-sabotaging myself. There's no evidence to prove that that's not going to work out. If anything, there is substantial evidence to prove that it is going to work out, but for some reason, I'm not choosing to look at it. I'm not choosing to think about who I want to be and where I want to go and all the things I've done to get myself there. I'm not thinking about the mini accomplishments along the way that I've been tracking. And I mentioned the importance of the mini accomplishments. I mentioned it in a few videos, and I've really, I think I've said it, and it's been slowly sinking in how I don't really do that either. How I don't celebrate these little wins along the way. And being honest, I think I've just been filled with a lot of doubt this week. I think we do have these moments. Ultimately, we are human, and social media is in our lives, but it wasn't always in our lives. And so we're still learning how to work with it. We're still learning how to make it work for us. And I think I'm really learning as someone who really, I take on board other people's opinions, and I really compare myself, and that's kind of not healthy or good, and I don't want to compare myself, but I do. And so when I'm on social media and scrolling and seeing other people's stuff, that is making me feel insecure. But I don't know why, and I think that's why I want to talk about this on this week's podcast episode. Where has this negative self-talk come from? Why do I think not me? Did you guys just hear that? That was a big truck outside. And it's really made me think, why not me? Where has this thought process that I am not going to succeed come from? Where has all this self-doubt come from? And I think it stems from it being at this point in the year where everyone is sharing what they achieved and their goals, and me being a bit there's a limited amount of success. And I think I have a scarcity mindset that there is a limited amount of success in the world, which just isn't true. And I don't know if you feel the same way, and maybe you feel the same way. You see other people achieving the things that you really want to achieve, and you think that's that. Well, that's the opportunity gone. They've got my dream job. They've got the thing I always wanted. They've managed to get the career. Now it can't be me. And I mentioned this on my call with Maria, and I was saying about how I felt really unsure about where I was going, and I saw all these things that was making me feel really inadequate. And she was like, well, what if the universe was showing you things to show you how easy it could be? To show you that it's a possibility? What if all of these things were evidence that you could succeed because other people could succeed? Why are you choosing to look at it like a limiting thing? Why is it not an encouraging thing? And I thought, I have never thought about it that way ever before in my entire life. I've never used these things in a positive light. And it's because my muscle of negative self-doubt, that's the one that is flexing the most, because it's the most well-trained. And it's the one where I'm constantly scared, not scared of failing, but going into a more creative outlet, or going into something that's out of your comfort zone means there's more opportunity for means there's more opportunity for how you think about yourself to bear more of an impact because there's less evidence on how it's going to go. And I know a lot of us are entering 2026 with these new goals and these new ideas of who we want to be and where we want to go. And often those new goals means pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, which is where these negative thoughts can really slip in. And I've been trying to just like track, not in a like proper meticulous way, track my negative thoughts, but just be aware of the way I talk to myself and aware of the way that I act towards myself. And it just made me realize how intensely I berate myself if like something doesn't do well, or if I haven't found time to edit, or if I haven't found like, I don't focus on how something's making me feel. I focus on what I should be doing rather than what I want to be doing. And that isn't really the way I should be working. You know, obviously we all have shoulds that we have to do. There's the non-negotiables that we have, but I want to be talking to myself in a kind way that's encouraging. And in making all of these things so intense and so like failure focused, I'm taking the joy out of them. It's not fun anymore. And in doing that and making everything failure focused and seeing someone else doing well and thinking now it can't be me, and thinking other people gain followers and thinking well they're now following them, I am training my brain to look at all of the negatives and focus on the negatives. Because your brain is a muscle, and the more it notices things, that's what it will be trained to notice. And so I'm here trying to build a really positive life, but I'm putting these glasses of negativity on every single day, which means that my brain is just pulling out the things that aren't doing well. Because this way we think about things, the way that we talk about ourselves, the way we see our achievements, it's a muscle. And we have got to make the active choice to start being more positive. I think the naivety about it all, well, not the naivety, but I think one of the big issues I thought was that if I had a happier life, my headspace would become happier too. Yes, that's true. I am a lot happier. I'm a lot less anxious. I'm a lot more comfortable in my environment. I like who I am. I like where I'm going. But it hasn't fixed everything, you know. My basic foundation is good, but I'm still pretty harsh on myself. I still berate myself if I'm not doing well enough. I still think I have to work the hardest and try the most and do absolutely everything in my power to get to where I want to get to. And that kind of intense mindset isn't doing me that well. It's making me feel very on edge, and it's making me really, and it's not allowing me to rest. Because I spoke to you guys about finding the Christmas holidays really lovely, but also hard because I felt guilty having time off. I felt guilty having time away from things. I felt guilty that I wasn't doing enough of what I was meant to be doing, which means even when I am having time off, I'm not really having that time off because I am your biggest cheerleader for everyone else. But to myself, I would never say the things. I would never think, you know what, you are doing pretty great. I would never look at what I'm actually achieving and think, we're doing good. And I think that's about you too. Like, look at all of the things that you've got going on in your life. Look at everything you have pushed yourself to achieve. Look at the time you're taking to really give that time back to yourself. Like the fact you've turned this podcast episode on. You're carving out time for yourself every single week, and like it's proven by you listening to this podcast, and that is such a positive thing. But if I look at everything that I've been doing, I don't know how much time I've been carving out just for me to relax without feeling guilty. And like last night was the first time that I just sat and I read my book, and I knew I should have been editing, I knew I should have been writing something, I knew I should have been working a bit more, but I didn't. I just did that, and it was the first time that I stopped feeling guilty for not having the time to do everything. Because rest is also important. Allowing ourselves to switch off is incredibly important, and if we don't allow ourselves that, this year of excitement and big goals and big aspirations that we have, we're not going to be able to support ourselves in them if we don't have the space to calmly think about what we want to do, to calmly plan our next move, to calmly make decisions. Like, rest is so incredibly important. And so this week, I've kind of struggled with my negative self-talk, and it's kind of overruled, and it's been putting a lot of pressure on me to feel like I have to be a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain person, and I haven't felt like I'm doing good enough in every single aspect. And I don't want that. I don't want that for us. I really want this year to be a positive year, and the only way that's going to change is if I start actually thinking about who I am and who I want to be and where I want to go. Like if I start sitting in the driver's seat, because it's all right sitting in your driver's seat for your goals and all of these things and like deciding this is what I want to do with your life. Because that's what I do, okay? I've decided these things I have in my life, and I am deciding I'm going to do them. Got it. We've locked in on that. But I haven't really locked in on the loving myself train, I haven't really locked in on the loving myself journey. I've kind of thought, I'm doing all the things, it's fine. I haven't really dug a bit deeper and thought, you're doing all the things, but are they having an impact? Are you actually working out where you want to go? Are you actually, being kind to yourself? Because all of these manifestations that we have, the only way they're going to work is if we're in alignment with the person that we are when we're going to get there. If we want things to happen, we have to manifest it. We have to think and truly believe that it's going to happen. And these goals I have are so big that they're only going to happen if I start believing in myself. If I start thinking, well, of course it's a possibility. If I start seeing the people around me and the people who have achieved those things as evidence that it could happen, not as, proof that it couldn't be me, proof that it could be, proof that it's possible, proof that it can come easily to me, and not just in a way that we're saying it out loud. This week has really made me realize saying it is different to believing it. And you've really got to start believing it. But the first step to believing it is saying it enough. So these are the things that I'm doing daily to improve my negative self-talk, because I've meant to be doing this and I haven't been doing this. And we've got to try. I want to spend 5 minutes talking nicely to myself in the mirror. 5 minutes feels like a long time. I realize this. It feels like you don't have 5 minutes to spare, but I just spent 20 minutes scrolling, so I definitely have 5 minutes to spare. I want to think about the different aspects of my life, and I want to stand in the mirror and I'm just going to say them to myself. And we're going to start it here, and it's going to feel cringe and embarrassing, and I'm not going to do it for 5 minutes, but we're going to do it together, because I think both of us improving the way that we talk to ourselves is important. We both have been doing really well and trying really hard, but the next step into making it work out, I think, is being really happy where we're at, is actually being content and thinking, you know what? I am going to achieve great. It's not that I'm not going to achieve great things, but what I'm doing right now is good enough still. Like, I'm still proud of myself. I still think I'm making an impact. I still think I'm doing a good job, because what's the point of getting higher and higher and not thinking that already? And I've realized, let's use followers as an example. No matter how many followers I get, I never feel like I'm doing good enough. I thought when I'd hit 10k, I'd feel like I'm doing good enough. I thought when I hit 20k, I'd feel like I'm doing good enough. In my head now, I'm like 50k, and I'll feel like I'm doing good enough. But that isn't happening because I'm not changing the underlying fundamental belief about who I am and whether I think I'm good enough. I've got to take that ownership. I can't expect a number to change that for me. That's got to come from me. And that's why the 5 minutes every single day of speaking nicely to myself, it's going to be a new habit I value just as much as going to the gym, journaling, eating well, getting outside. All of those things are equally as important. If not, talking to the way you speak to yourself is the most important, because it kind of underpins every single thing that we do. And this is why we are both going to be talking to ourselves nicely in the mirror. We are also going to start questioning our thought processes. As soon as we notice that negative thought, we're going to acknowledge it. We're not going to judge it. We're going to acknowledge it, and we're going to question why it's there, and we're going to ask ourselves, what could we replace it with? What could that be instead? And in doing that, in being less of a bystander and more of an active member of this life that we're living, I'm really hopeful that I'm just a bit kinder to myself, because I don't want to live a life that is just clouded by this constant feeling of not being good enough. Because although I have these big goals and these big aspirations, no amount of proving them is going to feel enough unless I already think I'm enough. And I think it's one of those lessons that we all learn a bit. We learn to love ourselves, we learn to appreciate ourselves, we learn to be proud of ourselves, but to believe it, to properly think, yeah, I am doing a good job, to feel it, to actually feel like I am doing a good enough job like that takes extra work, and that takes an extra level of locking in on your own self-love. Because we do have all of these big goals about who we want to be and things we want to achieve. But I don't think I've been valuing how I feel about myself enough. And that's why it's going to be a real focus of the next week, of the next year, but the next week in particular. And so if you've also been struggling with the way that you talk to yourself, I want you to know that you're not alone in it, okay? We're human at the end of the day, and we are our harshest critics. We know what we've done, and we know what we could have done more, and we're able to, analyze a situation in the way that can make us feel like we are not doing enough, because we don't know anyone else's full picture but our own. And so we think they've just done it so effortlessly, but we don't know what they're struggling with. And so comparison is making us feel like we're not doing good enough, making us feel like we're not achieving what we should be achieving, when in reality it's not the case. But it's easy for me to say this, it's much harder for us both to believe it, which is why practicing talking to yourself nicely is the only way we're going to break the habit. Because I don't want this to be a thought train that carries on my entire life. I want to believe I'm good enough. I want to believe I'm proud of myself. I want to believe that what we're doing is pretty great because I know it is, but I want to believe it. I don't want a gratitude list to feel like a shopping list. I want to actually feel truly incredibly grateful and inspired and excited by these things that are happening in my life, and getting in touch with that feeling that is going to make me feel great is going to be key to creating this life that we want this year. Because the only way we're going to achieve these big goals and these big aspirations is if we believe in ourselves, is if we think we can get there, but properly, truly believe it. Because the more I see people achieve, the more I realize the thing between you and them is confidence, is the audacity to believe, why not me? Obviously me. Of course it could be me. Why wouldn't it be me? Like, why couldn't we believe that instead of overthinking the worst? You know, we get a choice on what we get to overthink, and I'm really starting to push myself to overthink the best of a scenario, because again, it's a muscle. And as soon as we start training that muscle to see the positives, we're going to take those glasses of negativity off and we are going to put the glasses of positivity on. And all of a sudden you become one of those lucky people where good things happen to you, but maybe you're just noticing the good things more. Maybe all it is a perspective shift. Maybe your reality is the exact same. And so please send this podcast episode to someone that really needs to improve the way they talk to themselves, improve the way they see themselves, and improve the way they act themselves, because it underpins every single thing that we do. Thank you for listening to this week's podcast episode. I'll be back with the question part of the podcast next week. But before then, make sure you are following me on Instagram and on TikTok at Mail from Bella. And I can't wait to catch up with you next week. I love you. Bye. Mwah.